All right. Good evening, everyone. It is the top of the hour. We're going to give it just another minute or so to allow folks to join and get logged in, all of that stuff. So, welcome to everyone who is attending tonight. My name's Ed Recker. I'm with Sallie Mae. I know Sydney with NSHSS had just posted something in the chat. If y'all want to kind of introduce yourselves and where you're from, let everybody know where you're from. That would be fantastic. And again, we'll get started here in just another minute or so. Oh, and I love it seeing folks from all over the US, anywhere from looks like Alabama to Arizona, Texas, Illinois. I'm from Ohio, so almost sounds like a country song here. So yeah. Oh my goodness, someone from American Samoa. Excellent. Gosh, such a great group from pretty much everywhere. My goodness, all across the world. That's awesome. South Korea as well. All right. All right, we've got, oh yeah, just keep rolling in, rolling in. Well, gang, I don't want to stop you there, but I do want to be mindful of time, as I do know it is for all of us on the East Coast and even Central Time. It is the evening, and for those in the Western and Pacific time zone, still got a little bit of daylight left in you. But again, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name's Ed Recker. I am with Sallie Mae, and we're here partnering with NSHSS tonight about how to find free money for college with scholarships. Again, super excited to have you here. Really grateful for you to join in, and we are going to get started. So just want to roll through the agenda a little bit here and let you know what we've got on tap. So tonight is going to be all about scholarships, and I do want to stress that. I know sometimes we kind of get into separate side topics, and I'll talk a little bit about those if and when they do come up. But we want to really focus on scholarships tonight, and the agenda is right there in front of you. So first, we're going to start off with how scholarships can help you pay for school, scholarship resources, the importance and ease of scholarship search engines, how to create a winning scholarship essay, and then tips on applying for scholarships. Again, my name's Ed Recker. I'm with Sallie Mae. I'm the Director of High School Relationship Management here at Sallie Mae. And gang, I've been with Sallie Mae for about 5 years. Previous to that, I was on the financial aid side of the house. I worked at colleges and universities, mostly in Ohio. I am based in Ohio. And of those 15 plus years, I was a director of financial aid for 8 plus of those. So hoping to bring a little bit of that experience in with me as we go through the journey this evening. So the first thing we're going to talk about is how scholarships can help you pay for school. Now, it sounds relatively simple, but we always recommend you make a plan to pay for school. And we call this our 1, 2, 3 approach. And again, it seems pretty simple, but we're going to walk through it just because for some folks, this may be the first time you're hearing any of this. So the very first thing is start with money you don't have to pay back. Again, it sounds relatively simple, but you want to supplement your savings and income by maximizing scholarships, grants, and work study. And those are all what we would call free money. That's money that you don't have to pay back. So first and foremost, always maximize that free money. It's money you don't have to pay back. Take care of that. It helps to minimize how much you have to pay out of pocket. That second point is to explore federal student loans. So we always encourage students to explore federal student aid by completing the free application for federal student aid or the FAFSA. And gang, you're going to run into this quite a bit when you work with financial aid professionals. You'll find that we like to use acronyms. So Just a little bit of a deviation here, but we always recommend folks that if you don't know what an acronym means, feel free to raise your hand and ask whomever you're talking to. Hey, I don't understand that. Can you like literally spell it out for me? Because for financial aid folks, it's what we live and breathe. Sometimes you just need them to slow down and explain it a little more. Because oftentimes we don't even know we're doing it because that's just our area of expertise. So back on track here, after you fill out the FAFSA, if you're still in need of funds, there's still a gap there and you're looking for a way to fill that gap, we recommend that you consider a responsible parent plus or private student loan. So long story short on that is we really encourage students and families to evaluate all anticipated needs, look at both options, see which one works best for you. And you might want to take some things into consideration when you do that, such as how much a monthly payment may be, how much you anticipate earning during your career, things of that nature, so that it helps you along your path. So I know I had mentioned the FAFSA before, and before I dig in too deep, gang, I just want you to be aware that again, tonight's about scholarships. I am going to mention the FAFSA here, but we do want to move on from it from there. Um, but with that being said, and I believe it's October 22nd, I'll be back with NSHSS, and we're going to have a session all on the FAFSA. So if you have FAFSA specific questions, I'd encourage you to just kind of stay a hold of keep those under your hat. We might have some time yet tonight if you have questions, but the reality of it is we're going to have a session all on just the FAFSA here coming up in just over a month that you can tune in. Hopefully we'll answer a lot of your questions then, and we'll kind of move forward. But realistically, as we get back on track, and I promise, I'm not going to keep going off track here like that, but the FAFSA really is the key to financial aid. So again, the free application for federal student aid, or FAFSA, that's available at studentaid.gov. And the application is typically available on October 1st each year, but last year and this year are kind of the exceptions to the rule. The Department of Ed, because they're transitioned to a whole new application and a whole new system, they pushed that open date back a little bit. So this year it's going to be December 1st. So, write that down, circle it on your calendar. If you still have a paper calendar, December 1st is when you're going to want to look to complete that FAFSA. And so with the FAFSA, you're going to need some information. Most of the required information comes from your tax return. And one of those things that has changed, you don't even necessarily need your tax returns to keep the or to complete the FAFSA. All of that information is going to come over automatically through the FAFSA now, through the Future Act Direct Data Exchange, or FADDX. So you can use them as references, your tax returns, but you don't necessarily need it. And the other thing we always like to mention to folks is that some financial aid is awarded on first come, first served basis. So we do always encourage folks to apply as soon as you can. So again, December 1st this year, but also keep in mind that deadlines will vary from state to state. So we do have a question that's come in the chat. I'm going to try to answer some of these as we go tonight, so that they don't just pile up. And some folks might have the same question. So one of you all asked, will there be another date? So October 2nd is a religious holiday for some. So in this case, like I said, December 1st is when it opens. So you don't necessarily have to worry about it this year. In the future, and just remember that that's just the open date. You can complete it anytime thereafter. You don't have to worry about completing it exactly on the open date. So another question, so if someone's entering college in the fall of 2025, should we fill out the December 1st FAFSA this year? The answer to that is yes. And you're really going to want to look at, because at that time on December 1st, there will actually be two FAFSA applications open. There will be one open for the 24-25 academic year, which is the one that just started. And then the FAFSA that opens on December 1st will be for the 25-26 academic year. So that's the one you're going to want to take a look at when it opens up on December 1st. So another question we have is, what do you think applicants should do if they cannot afford the application fees? So that's a really good question. And I'm glad you brought it up, because we want to make sure that we are differentiating between the FAFSA, which is the financial aid application, and any types of admissions applications. So the FAFSA stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. So remember, the FAFSA is free. So for financial aid purposes, that is a free application. You shouldn't have to pay for that. Now, admissions applications, a little bit different, and that's where I would reach out to maybe the admissions counselor or your high school counselor to see what types of potentially waivers, or if they offer, sometimes they'll offer free application days for various students. So another question that came in, should we apply for FAFSA if we're going to community college? Another great question. And gang, I would recommend everyone complete the FAFSA, because one thing about the FAFSA, when it comes to not only federal aid and potentially state aid, but a lot of scholarships will require a FAFSA on file. So I always encourage folks, complete the FAFSA no matter what the household income is or things of that nature. Another misconception is that I make too much money, I won't qualify for anything. Folks, even if it's federal student loans, everybody qualifies for something. So make sure you complete that FAFSA, regardless of whatever your academic path or your home situation may be. So another question, with divorced parents where one does not contribute financially, can only one parent info be used? And the answer to that is yes. So again, we'll go into a little more depth on that on the October 22nd webinar. But absolutely, in the case of a split household, the parent who contributes more than 50% of the support to the student, that's the parent that goes on the FAFSA. So great question there. We've got another question. FAFSA is different than Parent Plus application, correct? That is correct. However, you do have to complete a FAFSA in order to apply for a Parent Plus loan. So very good question. Next question is, where do we go to complete the FAFSA? And that website is studentaid.gov. So again, studentaid.gov. So great question. Another one related, do you need to register a government ID in order to apply for FAFSA? So if I'm understanding this correctly, you do need to have what's called an FSA ID in order to complete the FAFSA. You get that ID at studentaid.gov. So same place you go to complete the FAFSA. But then you also, you'll want to do that 3 to 5 business days, at least 3 to 5 business days before you go to complete the FAFSA. So you can actually get your FSA ID at any time. You could do it right now if you want to. Well, not right now, we're having this conversation, but you could do it later tonight, tomorrow, whenever, anytime before December 1st. And again, I would say at least a week or two before, because it's going to take 3 to 5 days to process. So great question there. So next question, should the 24-25 FAFSA be filled out for fall 25 in October, since it covers 2025? Or if school is starting in the summer? So we've got a couple different questions there. So if you plan on starting college or university in the fall of 2025, you're going to want the 25-26 FAFSA. If you plan on starting in the summer and you want to use federal aid to help cover that, the answer is it depends. The reason being is some schools will start their academic year with summer, some will end it in the summer. And so because of that, it really just depends on how the school leverages that. So in that case, if you're starting in the summer, you're going to want to reach out to that college or university and ask them, hey, I'm looking at attending in the summer. I want to complete the FAFSA. Which one do I complete? And they'll be able to tell you. Next question is, can the FAFSA help me if I'm going to school out of my state or country? So short answer is out of state, absolutely. Out of country, possibly. There are actually some foreign institutions, some outside of the US, that do participate in Title IV or federal student aid. So again, out of state, easy peasy. Yep, you can use the FAFSA. Out of country, you're going to want to check with the college or university that you're looking at out of country to see if they participate. And if so, yeah, you can absolutely do that. So we're going to take a couple more on the FAFSA. Again, I want to make sure that we leave enough time and space for scholarships, but I know people have a lot of questions about FAFSA. So we're gonna tackle as many as we can tonight, but at some point I'm gonna move on here, gang. So all right, my son's senior year now, so when do I apply for FAFSA? So if this is the senior year, you're going to want to apply on December 1st using the 25-26 FAFSA. So good question. So yes, so same question. For anyone who is attending in fall of 2025, it will be the 25-26 FAFSA. So keep that in mind as you're moving forward. All right. So next question, when we apply for FAFSA, do they send the money to the college or the student? Great question. They will send it directly to the college or university. So it's not as though they use the student as an intermediary. Student does have to complete the application, but all of the funds go directly to the college or university. So we do have a scholarship question here about non or a student who isn't a U.S. Citizen who's here on visa. Which scholarships could we apply for, and there are other options? So great question. There are a lot of scholarships available for students who are non-U.S. citizens. So that's something that, we'll talk about some of those resources in just a little bit. So we'll hold tight to that one. For those planning to take a gap year and start college in fall of 2026, should they fill out the FAFSA and or scholarships apps now or later? So two-part question here. So you don't need to fill out the FAFSA, that 25-26 FAFSA, if you're planning on taking that gap year. But gang, there are scholarships out there available to students who are looking to take a gap year. So something to keep in mind. And I always tell folks, keep your eyes and your ears open when it comes to scholarship opportunities. Something you can definitely look for even if you plan on taking a gap year. So, all right, I'm going to take a couple of more FAFSA questions here, gang, and then we're going to move forward. So, does the student and the parent complete the FAFSA? So the answer is yes. There are sections for both the student and the parent, and the FAFSA is what they call role-based. So both will need to have their own separate FSA IDs. Both will log in, and both will complete their section in order for the FAFSA to be considered complete and submitted. So good question. So next question, do I know if I still need to get FAFSA aid number if my child is already taking dual enrollment classes in school now? So yes, so dual enrollment is different from say an FSA ID. Dual enrollment, they are enrolled at both high school and a college or university, but odds are they probably haven't completed a FAFSA if they're in dual enrollment. So if they haven't done that, they will still need to get their FSA ID, and they'll need to complete the FAFSA once that time comes, once it opens up on December 1st. All right, next, let's see, a couple more. I'm going to do two more, gang, and then we're going to move forward, okay? So can I enter the 25-26 FAFSA information earlier than December 1 and then apply on that date? So the answer to that is no. So as of right now, the only FAFSA application that's open is 24-25. Because of some of the challenges that the Department of Ed has had, they've let everyone know that there will be no what they would call rollover of data from year to year. So if you went in right now and logged into the 24-25 FAFSA, and you put information in. Essentially, I hate to say it this way, but it'd kind of be a waste of time. You'd get a nice test run at it, but none of that information would roll forward into the new year FAFSA. So you're just better off holding off until that 25-26 FAFSA opens on December 1st. All right, gang, last one on FAFSA, and then we're going to move on. Again, I thank you. I love the engagement, but we want to make sure that we're leaving enough time for scholarships here. And just another reminder, October 22nd, I'll be back. We're going to talk about FAFSA then, and it's going to be all FAFSA all night. So y'all are going to be FAFSA'd out. And by the end of the night, you're either going to love me or you're never going to want to hear from me again. So last one on FAFSA. If we have some time at the end, we'll definitely take a look at these again. But last one, FAFSA is to determine federal aid, so loans, grants, et cetera. And the answer to that is yes. And then scholarships are determined by school considering academics, athletics, et cetera. So two parts to this. So yes, FAFSA is used to determine federal aid, so federal student loans, federal grants such as the Pell Grant. Scholarships can come from a lot of different places, and I think this is a great place to segue. And I'm gonna kind of put a pin in that question, and we're gonna move forward because I'm gonna answer some of these in the upcoming slides. All right, so moving on, we're gonna talk about scholarship resources here. So scholarships, like Ed mentioned earlier, they are financial aid awards that don't have to be repaid. So free money. I mean, the best kind of money you can get, free money. Don't have to pay it back. I'll take it all day, every day. And a scholarship might cover the entire cost of your tuition, or it might be a one-time award for a few $100s. Either way, it's worth applying for because it'll help reduce the cost of your education. So we talked about that a little bit earlier. Sometimes people wonder when they should start applying for scholarships. And the truth is, each scholarship has its own unique requirements that'll indicate who qualifies and how to apply. It also depends on the scholarship deadline dates. So some deadlines are as early as a year before college starts. So gang, I believe I'd mentioned that earlier. But there are scholarships out there for high school juniors, and there are actually scholarships out there as early as freshmen in high school. So you always keep your eyes and ears open. And really, if you're in high school right now, you should start researching and applying for scholarships right now, as early as, like I said, as early as your freshman year, if you're able to. But I'd also say if you miss that window, don't give up. You just keep looking for scholarships and more scholarship information to see which ones you can still apply for. Usually the next question is, well, how do I apply? And I see them out there. How do I apply? Well, each scholarship has its own requirements, which I had mentioned, and the scholarship's website should give you an idea of who qualifies for the scholarship and how to apply. You're going to want to make sure that you read the application carefully, fill it out completely, and meet the application deadline date. Really, really important, folks, because there usually is little to no flexibility to those application deadlines. So keep that in mind. So, all right, I'm going to check out the chat here. I'm sorry, the Q&A, and see what's out there. So we've got, how can I find scholarships for someone who, really in a unique situation? I'm struggling to find these. We're going to talk about some resources that are available out there. And admittedly, some are, a little more user-friendly and easier than others. But we're going to talk about, hopefully, some resources that'll help make it easier for you to find scholarships, basically for what make you unique. And another question, do you have to fill in the school name in the application? So scholarship application. So for the most part, if they are what I would call like a private scholarship, that it's coming from maybe an outside foundation, not based on a college or university, you don't really, at the time of application, you don't need to give them, hey, this is where I'm going. Because, honestly, right now, even for you seniors, you may not know where you're going. We've still got some time to decide. You're still in that information gathering stage. So the answer is no, you don't have to name a school on the application. When you win the scholarship, though, you do have to let the scholarship donor know where you're going because they'll send that money to you, or I'm sorry, to the school. Do you have a website listing the scholarships for the NSHSS students? So Sydney, I'm gonna let you handle that one. I'm pretty sure you all have one, but I'm gonna defer that one to you. Oh, here's a great question. Is there a limit to how many scholarships you can apply to? The answer to that is no. Apply, apply, apply. I always tell folks, if you don't have a part-time job, make it your part-time job, because you can continue to apply for scholarships throughout, and the more the merrier. The more possible, the better. So, a couple more here. If you receive a scholarship, can you also apply for the FAFSA? And the answer to that is absolutely. Kind of the same scenario where if you can keep applying no matter what. So just keep going there. We've got one specific to a 529 account. So for those that are not familiar, a 529 account is a college savings account. It says, if my child has a 529 account, will a scholarship allocation be impacted? The short answer to that is no. No, it will not. So 529s are considered essentially an outside payment. So they will have no impact on a scholarship. All it'll really do is mean if you secure a scholarship, you won't have to take as much out of that 529. So that's definitely a good thing. So we've got a question here. I'm gonna table because we're gonna get to this one. Can you recommend a place where to search for scholarships? And we've got some sites available for you. So I'm gonna hold on. And then a similar one, same thing. Lots. Where can I find them? All right. I think that is a good transition as we keep moving here, because it looks like we've got a lot of questions on where to find them. But before we go on to where to find them, I think it's important to talk about what types of scholarships are out there. So, scholarships, most of the time when people think of scholarships, they're thinking of usually one of two, which is usually academic, or which sometimes are called merit-based scholarships, or athletic scholarships. But the reality is that there are a lot of different scholarships out there. So they can be based off, like I said, academic achievement, but also financial need. And that's why we always encourage folks to complete that FAFSA, because sometimes that's part of it as well for a scholarship. Community involvement or organizational membership. So keep that in mind as well. If you're involved in the community, if you do some volunteer hours, does that organization have any type of scholarship opportunities? I had mentioned sports, but also talent or skill. I mean, you can get a scholarship for being in the band. You can get a scholarship for debate, for esports or things of that nature. So all sorts of things out there. If you're an artist, if you have leadership or school activities on your co-curricular transcript, that's something to look at. And even though I know that it's been a hot button, there are still scholarships out there for folks based on their race, ethnicity, religious affiliation, and even parental affiliation with their work, clubs, or activities. Um, so those are some of the things. Those are some of the places that you can kind of look for, or what will potentially qualify you for scholarships. So let's see here. We've got some other questions that come in, basically about what can we use a scholarship for. So will there still be dorm fees that are not covered by scholarships? Good question. It's really going to depend on the scholarship. So some scholarships, they call them tuition specific, so they can only be used for tuition. Some can be used for like tuition and fees. Some could be used for tuition fees and then housing and meals. So it depends on the scholarship. You just have to kind of pay attention to what they're saying that someone can or cannot use the scholarship for. Another question, can students qualify for scholarships if they're going abroad for college? The answer to that is yes. Again, but it's going to depend specifically on the scholarship itself. Some have no what we would call restrictions. So you can use them for any type of educational experience. Some might say, oh, you have to be on campus or something of that nature. So good question there. Uh, are there any JROTC scholarships? So my understanding is yes, but I'll be honest, I'm not 100% sure there. I know that there are definitely ROTC scholarships out there, but my assumption is that if you're in the JROTC, there are some available out there for you. If you get accepted for a scholarship, would they send the money to you or your college? So they're going to send it directly to the college. Another question, it looks like this is one about athletic scholarships. We found out recently through a school visit that only D1 and D2 level schools offer athletic scholarships. So we have to kind of be careful with this because if we're talking about NCAA, that is correct. Division One and Division Two schools, those are the only ones authorized by the NCAA to extend athletic scholarships. Now, there's also the NAIA. Now, gang, I'm going to be very transparent. I'm not as familiar with the NAIA. That's another oh my gosh, National Association of Intercollegiate Athletics, I believe, is what it's called. A little bit different. I know some of them offer athletic scholarships. I also know that I believe some do not. So from an NCAA perspective, yes, D1, D2. When we start talking about NAIA, you may want to just ask that question point blank and see what kind of answer they have. So another question, if a scholarship is awarded for, say, $5,000, is that one time or annually? Now, this is a really good question, and this is where we're going to, I would actually encourage you to either kind of read the fine print or ask the scholarship provider that question, because it's really going to depend on the scholarship. Some may allow it to be renewed. Some will say, no, this is a one-time award. So you're going to want to just read that fine print, maybe even ask the scholarship organization, and they should be able to answer that question for you. So next question, if I get a full ride scholarship and other scholarships, what happens to the extra money? So we've got a couple of questions in here. And gang, I know you're probably like, man, this guy likes to go down rabbit holes. He likes to expand on these, but I think it's important because words do matter. So when we talk about a full ride, and gang, when I was on campus, I was very explicit in the language I used around scholarships. So when I hear full ride means everything. That is what in financial aid language we would call cost of attendance. That is tuition, fees, room, your housing, your meal plan, your books, that's everything. So so if you get a full ride, um, federal federal regulations say that a student cannot receive aid in excess of what's called the cost of attendance. Now, a true full ride is that cost up to cost of attendance. So in that case, you cannot get money in excess of that. What happens to that extra money? The reality is it just depends. Unfortunately, they're not going to cut you a check. They're not going to give you a check or refund that money to you. What usually happens is, especially if the money is coming from the college or university themselves, the college will reduce the amount that they're giving you and then accept that outside money. So you're still getting your full ride. It's coming from different organizations as opposed to just the school. So another question, are there acting or drama scholarships? Absolutely. I think there are scholarships organizations that focus specifically on that. There are also colleges and universities that extend scholarships based on acting or drama. So yeah, great question. Is it possible to receive athletic scholarships if I played junior varsity instead of varsity? Potentially. I think that just depends on the college or university. Those types of scholarships are going to be they're going to be offered by the coaches at those colleges and universities. So it's definitely going to be case by case and dependent on that coach or university. Does Sallie Mae offer scholarships? We do. We have a couple of programs out there. Most notably, our Bridging the Dream program. Unfortunately, that application process is not open yet this year, but that's something that we can definitely let you know when it does open. I'm going to take a couple more questions, gang, and then we're going to move on. So let's see here. Okay, we've got a FAFSA question. I'm going to jump past that. If you're accepted for a scholarship and you don't want to use it at the time, you want to use it in the future, can you do that? So I would say that question, or that's really going to depend on uh, whether or not the scholarship organization allows you to defer it to that next in that in a later date. So, gang, I apologize. I know sometimes people are probably like, man, this guy, all he seems to say is it depends. There really are a lot of there's a lot of gray area when it comes to financial aid. And oftentimes it does depend. It depends on the flexibility of the donors and things of that nature. All right, so I'm going to take one more question here and then we're going to move on again. So, um, my son plans to attend junior college and then a four-year university. What does he do with awarded scholarships? Hold them somehow or somewhere for the 2 years? So I really think that that goes back to very similar to the previous question. I think you would need to really reach out to those organizations and let them know what your intentions are. They may allow you to defer that scholarship until uh, your son attends that four-year college or university. That way you can kind of, hold on to it. What they probably won't allow you to do is just like get the check and you keep it. Oftentimes they are going to want to send that money directly to the school. So again, I know I say it depends and you're going to have to check, but realistically, a lot of these are case by case basis. So, man, y'all have great questions. I love it, but we're going to move on. And keep moving with the presentation here. So some of the resources. So I've heard a lot. There have been a lot of folks in the Q&A that have said, hey, where do I find scholarships? So there are a lot of places to find them. So I believe I've mentioned local or community-based scholarships. A great place to find them. Oftentimes, especially in larger communities, they have community foundations that they have a lot of local scholarships. Uh, they really aggregate them for students and families, so you only have to look in one specific place. Federal and state agencies, this is beyond the FAFSA. They may have some scholarships as well. College-specific scholarships that are offered by the colleges students may be interested in attending. So this is a big source of scholarships, but those are college specific. So those are the ones where sometimes people ask, well, if I get a scholarship, can I take it to any school? Well, if it is offered by a specific college or university, the answer is probably no. They're going to want you to use it at their institution. Otherwise, you just can't have it. Religious organizations, again, a great place. Employers, libraries, private organizations, or major companies. Um, you know, some of those that come to mind right away are like the Coca-Cola scholarship, or I know McDonald's has scholarships. Someone asked about Sallie Mae. We have scholarships. So a lot of private organizations and companies do have scholarships. And then also, online search engines that aggregate scholarship offerings and allow users to be matched to scholarships based on uh, personal profile. So there's a lot out there. There's a lot out there. And I'm really going to tug on that for just a little bit, and then I'm going to go back to some questions. So I mentioned those scholarship search engines, and they're really important because they really do pull in all sorts of scholarships from all over so that you don't have to just go to Google and try to look up scholarships and try to find scholarships just one off kind of random. So like I said, they house an aggregate list of scholarships and allow you to be matched to scholarships based on personal information you use to search. So uh, there are different ones out there. So some you have to set up a profile, some you don't. But if you do have to set up a profile, keep it up to date. So make sure test scores, grade point average, any clubs, organizations, community service, and volunteer activities, make sure you keep them up to date there. Um, and then this isn't just through your junior or senior year of school. So maintain that profile when you get to college. I think there was a question in there about, hey, can I get scholarships while I'm still in college? Yes, you can. So again, that kind of goes back to my always keep your eyes and ears open. And another really good tip when it comes to any scholarship, gang, scholarship applications should not cost a fee to apply. So keep that in mind. So some things to look for in a scholarship search engine. So in your search for scholarships, you'll find search engines. They can absolutely help you narrow your search and guide you to the perfect scholarships based on your profile. So I know I'd mentioned about individual applications, but this goes for scholarship search engines as well. They should always be free. You should never have to pay for a scholarship application or for someone to help you find scholarships. Oftentimes, these engines will validate the scholarships to ensure that they're current and up to date. And we'd also encourage you to leverage some type of calendar feature to help you know what deadline dates are first and get an application plan and timeline in place. So gang, I'm going to pause for just a second, take a quick sip of water, and then we're going to dive into some more questions here. So thank you for that pause. So there's a question about missing the PSAT and a potential deadline exception. So I would, for the National Merit Scholarship. So I would reach out to the National Merit Scholarship Foundation, the organization that runs it. But in most cases, they don't have any type of exception for late applications, things of that nature. So again, I would encourage you to reach out to them directly, but generally speaking, unfortunately, they tend not to. They being scholarship organizations tend not to make exceptions for application deadlines, largely because there are numerous applicants, and they if they're making exceptions, the cycle will probably never end. So uh, we've got several questions here about scholarships for um, really specific disciplines or situations. So robotics, team managers or sports referees, students with disabilities, dance. Gang, I'm telling you right now, there are scholarships out there for any and all of these. The key really is just to be able to find them, and that's where these scholarship search and uh, engines are really helpful. Similar with, I'm seeing how about medical students who are looking to go to med school, things like that. Absolutely. So, I'll kind of give a blanket answer of if you're interested in a certain field, if you have a certain hobby, odds are there's a scholarship out there. Now, I don't, feel like I know a lot, but I don't know a list. I don't have a list of all the specific scholarships offered all around the US and the world. But generally speaking, yes, it's just finding them. And that's where those scholarship search engines come into play. So I'm going to take a couple of more and then we're going to keep moving on here. So cost of attendance would include more than tuition, books, meal plan, dorms. Is cost of attendance then determined by some mathematical equation to include other expenses? So the short answer is yes. So the Department of Education does require schools to come up with a cost of attendance that includes all of those things, plus other things such as transportation, personal expenses, and miscellaneous. Now, admittedly, the Department of Ed keeps it kind of vague because they do give the college or university the latitude and autonomy to be able to really come up with that cost of attendance on their own. So your point is valid, but it's going to vary from school to school. And although they have what I would say call certain categories that they have to have something accounted for within that category, the actual dollar amount is going to be up to the college or university. Let's see here. Question, are, are student loan standings by a parent taken into consideration when it comes to the student's financial aid and scholarship eligibility? To my knowledge, the answer is no, definitely not from a federal perspective, almost certainly not from a private perspective. So do we have to pay taxes on the scholarships we've gotten? This is a great question. And in true financial aid form, the answer is maybe. So in the United States, once if you receive scholarships and grants that exceed your tuition and fees, per the IRS, you are supposed to pay taxes on anything above tuition and fees. So we had mentioned earlier about a full ride, so that would be everything. So technically, you are supposed to report anything above tuition and fees as such on your taxes, and that would be considered taxable. All right. So another question, if we plan to go to college in another state, should we look for scholarships that are local to that state? So again, it kind of depends, but realistically, because a lot of scholarships, as long as they're not earned at that particular college or university, a lot of scholarships will travel with you no matter where you go to college. So I would say look for scholarships close to home, not in the community that is near the college or university you're looking for. So do you apply to college specific scholarships or do they give it to you based on qualifications upon admission? So it can be both. So a lot of schools will offer you scholarships just based on your admissions application. You know, they have certain criteria that are usually included within your admissions application. They'll automatically extend those scholarships to you. But what I would also encourage folks to do is ask the admissions counselor of the school that you're looking to attend. Hey, are there any other scholarships that I might be able to qualify for? Or is there anything else I can apply for outside of just what they've already given you? So I would definitely recommend that. So how do you determine if a scholarship is legit or not? Some seem too good to be true. So I think that's valid. But what I would say is probably the easiest way to determine if it's legit or not. Number one, are they asking for any type of application fee? If they're asking for money, it's a scam. Point blank, I'm not afraid to say that out loud because if they are truly trying to give you money, why would they ask you for money? So that's number one. Number two, I'd be very leery of any scholarship that asks you for any type of personal information up front. And when I say personal information, I'm talking date of birth, I'm talking social security number, those types of things. That seems very fishy. I would consider that a scam. Beyond that, frankly, gang, there are a lot of great scholarships out there that might sound a little quirky. They might seem a little too good to be true. You know, if they're not asking you for money and they're not asking you for your personal information, uh, you know, sometimes those quirky, weird ones, they're out there and they're legit, and you just got to give it a go. So another question, should I use my school Gmail account for scholarships? So I always recommend for folks to use something other than their school email account, largely because once you leave your high school, that email account is probably going to be deactivated. Now, and sometimes that's not the case, but the majority of times that is the case. If that is the case, you're going to want to set up a personal email account and just use that because if you get an award offer after you've left high school, it's going to go to your high school email address and you will never know about it. Most organizations are not going to expend a lot of energy trying to track you down. They're going to go to the next person on the list. So use an email address that not only that you're going to check, but also one that's going to be around after you graduate. So I'm going to answer a couple more, and then we're going to move on to scholarship essays. So if you fill out a profile for these scholarship searches, do you have to use your weighted GPA or normal GPA? So I always defer to normal GPA. I know weighted GPA, there's a reason for it, but you have to remember that most of these organizations may not know, they may not differentiate. So normal GPA is normally the way to go there. So um, are schools moving away from ACT and SAT scores as recognized scholarships? It seems like they're just using GPA. Again, I hate to keep coming back to this answer, but it just depends on the school. Some are moving back to standardized tests. Some are staying test optional, or they've eliminated those test scores altogether. So it just kind of depends on the college or university there. All right, we're going to move on. Y'all are awesome. I love the engagement. We're going to keep moving on to scholarship essays. So uh, like I said, there's no better time to start searching for scholarships than right now. There are a lot of scholarships that do require essays in order to be considered. So you'll want to write one that shows how you are the best fit for that money. This isn't your typical school essay either. This is a chance to show who you are beyond your grades and scores. So keep that in mind. And here are some really good tips in order to help you to write a winning essay. So leave yourself plenty of time to produce a well thought out entry. Take the time to brainstorm your ideas, create an outline, and edit your entry as you would for any essay writing assignment for your English class. Or think of a big, like you got a big project, big paper. Approach it like that. Think before you write, brainstorm to generate some good ideas, and then create an outline to help you get going. Each scholarship provider is looking for students who meet certain criteria. So consider writing about an experience or interest that highlights your strong ties to the organization's mission. General passion and enthusiasm for your topic will show through in your essay. And gang, those points are so pertinent. They're so important. Uh, you know, it sounds silly, but passion comes through in writing. If you're just writing about, just an average experience or something like that, it's probably going to show, how did something impact you? What was important to you? And do not, please, please, please do not minimize something because you don't think it's, grandiose. Uh, Realistically, if it was important to you and it had a profound impact on you, it's going to shine through in that essay. So please don't shy away from that. Uh, Make it your own. And that's so super important. Make sure you follow all of the necessary steps and review them before submitting your scholarship essay. Trust me, some of the brightest students have missed out on the chance to earn scholarship dollars, all because they neglected to follow instructions. And you don't want to fall into that category. Scholarship committees would rather see how you overcame hardships and succeeded despite the obstacles in your path, or what you learned from the times you failed. And gang, again, I know nobody likes to talk about the time they fell short, but I can say from personal experience, some of my greatest learnings in my 47 years of life have come from when I failed. It wasn't when I succeeded. So again, make it personal, make it your own, and it'll resonate with those readers. Share something about who you are. This is your chance to elaborate on elsewhere on your application. You wouldn't have had the opportunity to do so. Telling your story makes an essay genuine and ultimately more memorable to a scholarship committee. So really kind of what I've been saying. And this one kind of stings sometimes. I know I was one of these people, but asking teachers, counselors, family members, or trustworthy friends for feedback on your essay will result in a better final product. Can't stress this enough, gang. And trust me, I'm right there with you. Sometimes it's really tough for me to not only give something up to welcome feedback and criticism, but you have to do it in order to really make it a better product. And this is something that, again, they're looking for. These readers are looking for someone who's going to shine, someone that it really comes through who they are. Having someone read through it and give you some pointers and tips, it's going to make a world of difference. And lastly, scholarship committees do notice grammar mistakes. Even tiny errors can distract a reader from your overall message. So before you submit your application, make sure you take time to proofread your essay from beginning to end, or quite frankly, gang, run it through Grammarly or something of the like. Uh, it's super important, and it'll make for a better read. And lastly on this, when you're tired, take a break, but don't throw in the towel. Don't give up on it. Everybody gets tired. Everybody gets a little bit fatigued on these. So it's okay to take a break. Just don't walk away from it. All right, we're going to go through a couple more things on essays, and then I'll answer a couple more questions here. So in short, really a good scholarship essay should be original and honest. So I know it sounds silly, but right from the heart, right from personal experience, um, and also state clearly why you deserve to win the scholarship. You know, uh, Sometimes you just have to ask for it, or tell them, hey, this is why I think I deserve this scholarship. Um, Part of being a great storyteller. So tell your story and tell them why you deserve it. Try to avoid unnecessary information. So I just mentioned being a good storyteller, but part of being a good storyteller means you're not constantly going off the topic. So try to make sure that you're staying on topic and you're staying focused. And if possible, have your essay be inspirational and positive in tone, even when a negative situation turns into something that you learned. That's a really good thing, gang. So don't discount that. All right. So we're gonna go and we're gonna look at a couple more questions here. So people are asking a lot, okay, hey, can I share some search engines as a starting point? So there are a lot of good ones out there, and honestly, you can go out and you can just do a Google search for search engines. But some of the ones that are out there are Big Future by the College Board. FastWeb has one as well. There are several out there. So I would start with them. Just to take a look and see what's out there. But I'll be honest, gang, I try not to recommend too many. I'll throw some names out there, but and the long and short of it is because honestly, each one's a little bit different. Some require you to create a profile, some don't. It just depends on what you feel comfortable with, what's going to fit yours. So let's see here. We've got a couple more here. Is there really any difference between college and university, or are they just different terms for the same use? Wow, that's a pretty good question. So, and I think the short answer is there are differences. In reality, they're nuanced. So if it's a college or university, so technically a college is something where all of the academic programs are basically under one umbrella, uh, whereas a university has different colleges within the university. So I'll give you an example of my alma mater, the University of Toledo. Go Rockets! They have a college of education. They have a college of engineering. They have a college of medicine. They have a college of arts and sciences, things of that nature, college of business. So I guess the long and short of it is there's not a huge difference. A lot of it's just kind of nuance, uh, but there is a difference. So it just depends on what you're looking for, really. So another question is a student eligible to get a scholarship if he or she goes to a private college? And the answer to that is most likely. It's something you'll want to just kind of check with the college or university on. Do you Don't you have to enter information to apply. Again, I think this just depends on what you mean by personal information. So some things that like I said, the things that I would consider personal information that I would not, and I would kind of red flag as a scam, would be date of birth and or social security number. Things like your name and address, quite frankly, gang, folks can, or even potentially even phone number. I mean, they can find that on an internet search. So I wouldn't be so concerned about those. But once we start getting into things where that might fall under the, hey, why are they asking this? Like a social security number, like a date of birth, like maybe even a driver's license number. Those are things I would steer clear of. That's my personal opinion there. What does it mean by don't repeat on the slide? So probably don't, let's see here. Are we talking, I'm guessing we're talking don't just recount, reflect. So when we talk about recounting, we're just kind of going and just kind of saying what happened. Reflection just is more of like, hey, how it impacted me, how it impacted my life, how it impacted the path that I'm going down, those types of things. Let's see here. Uh, do you think they would flag an essay if we copied and pasted it from the document we typed the final draft on? I would say no, no. And I think that kind of dovetails potentially into the next one. Can you speak against the use of AI as colleges have tools to detect writings that are created using AI? So, gang, this is one that is definitely hot button, definitely in the news a lot, and that is the use of AI and chat GPT and things of that nature. So it is relatively easy for folks to be able to identify uh, essays, any writings done specifically by AI. Uh, it quite honestly, they can usually copy and paste it into a search engine and it'll be identified, or to the point of the writer here. They do have tools and resources that can do that. Now, with that said, that doesn't mean you can't use AI tools to to kind of help edit. So big difference between having AI write it and assist in editing. So know that if you just say, go to Chat GPT and say, I think it's GTP, whatever, you get it, and say, hey, write me an essay about overcoming adversity. Oh yeah, they're gonna know that in a second. Colleges and universities and these scholarship organizations, they're going to know that very, very quickly. So you're going to get out of it what you put into it. If you do it that way, you're not going to win anything. But know that if it comes from you, your personal situation, uh, and really what makes you authentically you, that's going to shine through as well. Okay, a couple more, and I'm gonna move on. If you didn't win a scholarship, can you reapply? It depends on the scholarship. So a lot of them you can reapply from year to year. So keep that in mind. So if you don't get it this year, odds are you can reapply next year or the next time the scholarship is available. Is the suggestion not to use the same or similar essays from multiple applications, or is that okay? So I think this really goes back to being very aware of who's offering the scholarship, what the criteria are and what their mission is. So sometimes you can definitely kind of reuse or repurpose an essay, but also you got to make sure that you're tying it back into what the value system of that organization is. So I'm not saying you have to start from scratch every time, but I am saying you really should revisit it every time and make sure that, is this what they're asking for? Does this resonate with that organization's mission and their values? So one more, and then I'm going to move on here. So our websites like Going Merry and Scholarship Owl accurate and should be trusted. So I have heard of those, and those are reputable scholarship search engines. So those are two more that you can kind of add to the list. So good question, and kind of related, and then I'm going to move on. Uh, what were the two engines that I had mentioned? Fastweb.com was one of them, and then Big Future by the College Board. All right. So we're going to keep moving here. I know we're past the top of the hour, so gang, if you want to stick with me, I'll keep going. We're almost done with the slides, but I'm happy to answer questions for a little while longer. So I've had a lot of questions about, are there scholarships available for this? This is a particular interest of mine. This is a particular skill of mine. And the reality of it is that yes, there are scholarships out there. Some are quirky or a bit unusual. You can use scholarships tools like we've talked about to help you find those unconventional scholarships, because it's not all about straight A's and sports. There are thousands of scholarships out there for unique skills, interests, or creative entries. So whether you're choosing to make prom attire from duct tape, gang, and I did see a question pop up, I believe, about that. That is a legit scholarship. Uh, you love your pet or you love to rollerblade. Check out the options available and apply for scholarships that can help you fund your college dream. So, like I said, we're just about done here. We're going to try to, I'm going to try to summarize some of the tips that we've given. So, this is kind of what I would like to call the scholarship application success flywheel. So I think the very first thing you need to do is just make sure you're organized. We talked about creating an outline, giving yourself plenty of time. That's being organized. I talked about being authentic, just being you, speaking from your experiences. And we had actually mentioned that don't just recount, reflect. Be the authentic you, because that will come through on your scholarship application. You're also going to want to know the requirement. Gang, I've always said that, when you see the minimum requirements on for a scholarship, they're exactly that. They're the minimum requirements. Uh, that's like your ticket in the door, but that doesn't mean that you get to the front row or you get the backstage pass. That gets you in. After that, it's anybody's game. Make sure that if it's essays required, you have a knockout essay. Make sure you're doing all of those things and know the requirements. Tie it to that organization. If they require any type of recommendations, use strong recommendations. So whether it be volunteers, volunteer activities, so the coordinator of a volunteer activity, or your favorite teacher, someone you're really engaged with in class or in an extracurricular. Those are strong recommendations, and you want to use those. And then create that lasting impression. Like I said, that really ties into being authentic and being you. That doesn't necessarily mean being really over the top or grandiose. I heard a speaker say one time, it was a applicant from Montana who I believe got into one of the Ivies, Harvard or Yale or one of those schools. And the reader said what really struck them about it. They wrote about how they had, family dinner every Sunday, and for the longest time, the writer thought it was just like the silliest thing, not a big deal, didn't really care for it. It was kind of mundane. It was kind of like, what, whatever. But then through reflecting, they found that that was probably going to be one of the things that they'd missed the most when they went away from college, was just spending that simple time with family, recapping their week, gearing up for the next week, and just talking about silly stories and things like that. So it doesn't sound like much, does it? But that essay created a lasting impression with the reader. They were authentic, and it ultimately got them to where they wanted to be. And just keep it rolling, just like that. And it can make a huge, huge difference, both in admissions and in scholarships. So again, remember to meet deadlines, list important accomplishments first. So you always want to lead with your best foot forward. You're going to want to showcase your honors and awards. We also encourage you not to rule out smaller scholarships and also start looking for and applying early. So something you can do even yet tonight if you're so inclined. All right, so we're almost done here, folks. So I know you all, hopefully you've learned something tonight, and we're going to anticipate that everybody on this webinar has won a scholarship. What do you do now? And we've already answered some of these questions, but we're going to go through them just in case. So how you get your money, it's going to depend on the scholarship. Uh, but the vast majority of them, they're going to send the money directly to the college. That way it's applied to tuition fees or whatever amount you owe. Uh, it may, in rare cases, be sent directly to you via a check. But in those cases, and gang, I worked in a financial aid office, so I've seen these. They will send it as a check to the school, made payable to you as the recipient and the school. So you'll have to come in, sign the back of that check, and then the school will put it on your account. And then along those lines, the scholarship providers should tell you what to expect when they inform you you've been awarded for the scholarship. And if they don't be afraid to ask. That's important too. And I know I had mentioned this a little earlier, but how uh, a scholarship could affect your other aid. Um, it has to be added together and it can't exceed your cost of attendance. Gang, that's a federal rule. That's not the school being mean. So the U.S. Department of Education requires that. So when you receive scholarships, you'll want to let the school know you've been awarded. So if they do have to adjust any other aid, they can do so. And make sure you ask the schools you're interested in attending how they'll adjust your financial aid. So in some cases, they'll just reduce loans, which would be great. I mean, that's really what we started off with here. Let's get as much free money as we can so we don't have to take out loans. So always ask the school, but that's kind of best case scenario. If the scholarship's renewable, make sure you understand the requirements. So we've had some questions about this. If it is renewable, you got to know, hey, do I have to maintain a certain grade point average? Do I have to stay enrolled at a certain level or earn so many credit hours per year? If it's a degree or major contingent, do I have to stay in that major? Do I have to reapply each year or is it automatic? Those types of things. So make sure you're asking those questions. And then lastly, and gang, I know some of you are probably going to roll your eyes. And just for the record, I'm not a boomer, but I'm sure you'd be like, okay, boomer on this one. But make sure to write a thank you note, even if it's an email to that donor and follow any additional requests from the organization that awards your scholarship. Gang, a little bit of gratitude goes a really long way. And again, I know it sounds silly, but even a quick, hey, thank you so much. This means the world to me because, this will help me with my books, or now I don't have to take out as many loans. And that means a lot to me. Those types of things will go a really long way. So expressing a little bit of gratitude can go a long way. So gang, that's all I have for the formal presentation tonight. We've answered a lot of questions. I'm going to take a sip of water and then I'm going to go through and I'm going to try to answer some more questions. I will also say we are at about quarter past the hour. I'll stick on for a while longer and answer questions. Like I said, I'm here for you all, and you've been incredibly engaged, which I absolutely love. But I have a daughter who likes to say goodnight to dad too. So we're going to stay on for probably another 15 minutes or so, answering questions if you have some. I'm going to take a sip of water and we'll get started. Okay. All right. So I've got a question here. It's my senior year of high school. How many scholarships should I apply for? As many as you can. Quite honestly, apply for as many as you can. Uh, it's one of those that just keep going until they tell you to stop. Don't stop. Keep going. Uh, Apply for as many as you can. So, question: how difficult is it to acquire a full ride scholarship? It really depends. Uh, for the most part, those scholarships are really competitive, but we've also found that really competitive scholarships, those that have a lot of different criteria or maybe require like an essay and or a resume or things like that, sometimes people just skip by them because they perceive that they're too hard. So although they might be competitive, there might not be a lot of applicants. So, I just always say it just depends, but hey, you're never going to know if you don't apply, and you're definitely not going to get anything like that if you don't apply. So yeah, don't sell yourself short and keep moving forward. Uh, are there scholarships for learning a different language? I don't know for sure, but I would assume so. I mean, I do know that there are scholarships out there for those that are bi or multilingual. So keep that in mind as well. So I've got a question here. So I'm going to debunk this one right away. It says my son does not qualify for scholarships based on family income. So I'm gonna cut it off right there, gang. Although there are some scholarships that are what we had mentioned need based, so they do have like an income cap on them. Most do not. So I would say, although that might be the case for one particular scholarship, I would say that that is definitely not the case for the vast, vast majority of scholarships. So there's very few of them have income requirements. I would just say, if it does, move on to the next scholarship because for every one that does have an income requirement, there are probably five, six, eight, 10 more that don't. So I get what you're saying, that there might be one particular that does have an income requirement, but most do not. Uh, can you apply for scholarships if a student is an international student who's pending US residency? So that's going to depend on the scholarship criteria, and that'll it should be outlined in the scholarship itself. So it can require a like US citizenship or maybe state residency. But usually, if it doesn't say either, that means it's open to anyone, including an international student who's pending US residency. So I would just say read the criteria, but there's a good chance that you'd be eligible. So let's see here. Knowing whether or not you've been awarded the scholarship means you have to check with the school, or does someone respond to the applicant? So it's going to depend on the scholarship. So most schools will let you know. Outside organizations tend not to. Oftentimes, outside organizations will just let you know if you win. So I know that that's a little unsettling, and I think it was, oh, now I am showing my age. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers that said waiting is the hardest part. In this case, it definitely is because there's definitely something to be said for not knowing, and it's not a good thing. We live in Florida and has a Florida prepaid for my daughter's academics. Does the scholarship money get applied first? So my understanding of Florida prepaid, that is actually a 529 college savings account. If that is indeed the case, then the scholarship money does get applied first. And then any 529 money is applied after the fact. So again, I always tell folks, please I wouldn't let many things, if anything, deter me from going after scholarships. So keep uh, uh, keep rolling there. Um, oh, okay. So we've got a follow-up question for when it says no repeats. I think that really means just know about the scholarship essays. What that really means is just don't, and I think we kind of addressed it. Don't just copy and paste one singular essay for every and use it for every scholarship. Part of that's being authentic, part of it's tying it to that organization's mission and what their values are. If you just do a straight up repeat, copy and paste without any type of modification or really tying it back, it's really going to show. And again, you're going to get out of it what you put into it, which means you're probably not going to earn that scholarship. Um, Student loan question here. Can you apply for a student loan in the middle of the college year? So yes, you can do that. I know we're a little off topic there, but we'll tackle it. It's a pretty simple answer there. So we've got that one. Does the required FSA ID cover both the parent and student form? So so we're going back to the FAFSA here. The student needs an FSA ID and the parent needs an FSA ID. So they both need their own FSA ID. Um, Now, if it's a parent, if it's a parent and you're asking, I have multiple children, do I need a separate FSA ID? As the parent, do I need an FSA ID for each student? Parent, think of it as an electronic ID or an electronic signature. One FSA ID per person. So you should be good there. Why is it harder to find a scholarship for a community college rather than a four-year institution? So it's a good question. I think there are a lot of different variables to that. Um, Probably one of some of the bigger ones, and this is Ed Recker talking. This is just my experience. Uh, Community colleges tend to cost less than four-year institutions. So they and oftentimes when students complete the FAFSA, especially if they're eligible for federal grants, a lot of times those federal grants will cover the majority, if not all of the tuition and maybe even tuition and fees at a community college. So most donors will focus their funds more towards four-year institutions. But I'd also say that a lot of what I would call outside scholarships, so those from community organizations and outside donors, a lot of times they don't have restrictions on what type of institution it goes to. So keep that in mind when you're searching. But that's kind of the short answer to that question. There are a lot of variables and that go into it, but those are some of them. Uh, so we do have a student loan question specifically about Sallie Mae loans. I'm not, I'm going to answer this kind of broadly, if because we really want to focus on free money first. I would encourage you to, if you have specific loan questions, specifically about a Sallie Mae loan, you can go to our website, salliemae.com, and you should be able to look up some answers there. I apologize. I'm not trying to push off the question, but uh, I really want this to be a free money. We will most likely be having a session on sometime, like we call it, paying the remaining balance. And we'll probably be doing that in the spring. So really trying to focus on, we got a lot of time to find free money. Let's find that free money right now. So we can talk student loans as we get closer to that deadline. So do some colleges limit the amount of scholarships awarded? So the college or university may have a limit on how much they give, but that doesn't mean that you can't get scholarships from outside of the university. So the short answer to that is yes. It depends on the college or university, but that doesn't mean you can't go out and get as much as you can get. So keep that in mind as well. Uh, and Sydney, I believe this is being recorded and that attendees will get the recording, but I'm unsure of that. I heard it did say we're recording, so I'm assuming that y'all will get it. So I'm gonna leave that one to you all. Uh, if you require a portfolio to get into a college or to apply for a scholarship, is it bad if you only have two or three things in your portfolio? Does it hinder your chances? So, I think this kind of aligns with scholarship essays and you get out of it what you put into it. So if you only have two or three things, but they're absolutely amazing, and you can tell that there's a substantial amount of work that went into it, I don't think so. Now, with that said, I've never worked at a college or university that requires a portfolio. So it might be better to ask someone at that college or university. But my suspicion is they're going to give you a very similar answer to what I gave you, because I can tell you, there are definitely projects, whether it be in a portfolio, a paper, whatever it may be, that it's quality over quantity. So keep that in mind. So. I'd mentioned students in high school as early as freshman year can apply for scholarships. Did you mean scholarships for college? Yes, I did. Are there scholarships to support high school studies? I'm sure there are, but I'll be honest with you, I'm not familiar with them. I've never worked on it or worked in the space with kind of like 9 through 12 scholarships for high school students for their high school studies. So I apologize. I wish I had a better answer for that, but it kind of lies outside of my area of expertise. So next question, do we need to keep a track of all the scholarships applied? Do we need to follow up? And do they get back? So I think it's a good idea to maybe keep a log of keep track of what you've applied for. You can follow up, but I think I'd mentioned it earlier. They don't necessarily get back with you if you don't win. So I think those are all great ideas. And honestly, if you're a type A personality like me, I would probably do that. It just depends on the organization. Uh, let's see here. I'm not sure that I understand this question. If a student has his own taxes to report and 18 years old and don't depend on family income, do they have to complete the FAFSA? So we always encourage everyone to complete the FAFSA. I think what the question may be is if the student's 18 and they don't depend on other family income, do they need to include parental information? Again, I would say, we're gonna kind of hold on to that one until our October webinar. But the short answer is most likely. There are some circumstances where parental information isn't needed, but those are considered exceptions, and we'll talk about those in the October 22nd webinar. So uh, what about for when you're applying to colleges? Should we use the same college essay for each application, or should I upload different ones for each? So again, I think it just depends on the type of institution and really, what your goals are, what makes those institutions unique and different. What are their values? What are their criteria? Those types of things. So I do think that, maybe college admissions is a little bit different than or I'm sorry, scholarships. But again, I think it depends on the type of institution. If you're looking at highly selective institutions, you're really going to want to be able to stand out. You're going to want them to know why you think that you're a great fit for their institution. Because if we're being real, a lot of these schools think they are very different from each other. I mean, I'll pick on the Ivies, even Harvard and Yale. I'm sure they think they are very different from each other. So you're going to want to tap into that and make sure that you align what you're saying to what their values are, and what they feel like makes them unique. So is there essentially what I'm being asked for here? Is there an age limit on the FAFSA uh, to get aid, even if they have a previous degree? Especially, and the answer to that is no. There's no age limit for the FAFSA. It doesn't matter if you have a previous degree, especially if it's not a bachelor's degree. So if you have an associate's degree or a certificate, things of that nature, you are still eligible for federal grants, potentially state grants, those types of things. So I would say absolutely fill out that FAFSA. There's a very, very good chance that you'll be eligible for something. I've got a question here. Again, it's about Sallie Mae and a social security number. I'm guessing that is for a loan application. Sallie Mae does have a couple of scholarship programs, but we do not ask for social security numbers on our scholarship programs. So you may be in a loan application there. Let's see here. How do I look for grants? So this is a good question. We'll touch on it real quick because it's very related to scholarships. The vast majority of grants, so when we start talking about federal grants and even state grants, college and university grants, those are going to be driven by the FAFSA. So if you complete the FAFSA, that is essentially an application for all of those grants, federal, state, and institutional grants. We'll talk about that more on our October 22nd webinar about the FAFSA, but that truly is kind of a one application for all right there for grants. At what age can a student apply independently for FAFSA without parent support? So the answer to that question is 24. So unless it is an extenuating circumstance, you have to be 24 or older to apply without parental information. And then, gang, I feel like we are pretty much at the end here. And I think I'm going to end it at this because we're at the bottom of the hour. How strict are the word limits when writing your essays? If long, do they count it against you? In my opinion, yes, they will. Part of those requirements is they want to know that the essay writer can really, I mean, they can write in a succinct manner. It also goes to following directions. If they have a 2,000 character limit or 2,000 word limit, they want to make sure that you can stay within that. And you also have to look at it from the reader's perspective. So a lot of these scholarships may receive hundreds, even thousands of essays. If you go over that word limit, it really detracts from the reader, knowing that they have to read many, many more. So I would keep that in mind and really do try your best to stay within those word limits. So. All right, gang, we are just past the bottom of the hour. I know this was a lot. I hope it was helpful. I answered a lot of questions, and I genuinely hope you got something out of it. So at that, again, I appreciate your engagement. I always love the questions. I love coming on board with NSHSS to help you all out. I know I've mentioned it a couple of times, so keep your eyes and ears open for scholarships, but also keep in mind for everybody who had FAFSA questions, October 22nd, and NSHSS will be bringing me back for that FAFSA webinar. So keep your eyes open for that registration, and hopefully I see you then. All right, gang. Thank you so much again. I hope this was helpful. And on behalf of NSHSS and Sallie Mae, we thank you for your attendance and participation. Everyone, have a great night. Goodbye.